Barcelona race could get cancelled. I could get injured, I could get sick. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you like the content in this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you are interested in more stuff like this, then hit that subscribe button. Today I should be talking about the training that I'm doing leading up to this Ironman that I'm doing in 8 weeks time, or 70.3 Ironman in Barcelona. But unfortunately I'm not, because I had a stint in hospital after becoming very acutely anemic last week and suffering all the symptoms of anemia, which will be fatigue, tiredness, lightheadedness, sleepy, drowsy, weak, and with shortness of breath, with some mild chest pain. I didn't really have the mild chest pains, but they're kind of the general symptoms of anemia. What happened to me was a week previous, so the day after I did the last half Ironman race, the one I DNF'd in, the following day I got a really bad gastric bug, I think, and I was vomiting quite a lot that night. And it seems that I had some sort of a tear on my stomach lining and therefore lost a lot of blood. That went on for about a week. I was trying to train during the week and I was just becoming more and more tired and weaker and weaker, till I finally got to the point on Sunday where I took myself to the doctor and he sent me straight to A&E. He said had I not come in, I probably would have passed out somewhere. So anyway, did a day or two in hospital and put a scope down. They found this little tear. I've got to take some medication for the next couple of weeks. Fingers crossed everything should be fine. I have to go back in 3 weeks time to have a blood test to make sure that my blood levels are fine. My hemoglobin was like really low. It was 8.9, and what you want it to be is around 14 to 17.5, so mine was very low. So I've got to get that checked in 3 weeks time and then get a scope done again just to make sure everything's fine down there, and if it is, then I'm good to go. I can't exercise. They told me I have to take it easy for about 10 days and then I can kind of get back to exercise. So that's really putting a spanner in the works for the build up to this race. But anyway, I digress, and we'll soldier on and see how it goes. So what I want to talk about today is anemia and the types of anemia, and how anemia is not a condition, it's a symptom. So if anybody tells you that you're anemic or if you've become anemic, the primary thing is to find out why you're anemia. Anemia is a symptom, so it's not a diagnosis. A lot of people think it's a diagnosis. I, as a clinician, get people come into me all the time telling me that they were diagnosed being anemic by their doctor, and my first question is, what's causing your anemia? And they're kind of looking at me scratching their head going, I'm anemic. So anyway, there's three main types. One is it would be from a B12 deficiency, and that's what we call a macrocytic normochromic anemia. Macro meaning big, cytic meaning size. So macrocytic is large size, normochromic, so normal color. So what happens is in that your blood looks like the right color. When you look at it under a light microscope, the coloring is fine in the blood, but the red blood cells are too large. So if you imagine a little cubic millimeter, so 1 cubic millimeter box, cube, you can fit about 5, if you fill that up with blood, you'll have about 5 million red blood cells in that cubic millimeter. And only one of those can pass through a capillary at any time. So a capillary is only the diameter of one red blood cell. So if you have a B12 deficiency, B12 is also known as maturation factor, so it allows cells to mature really well. And if you don't have enough B12, your red blood cells just keep growing and growing and growing. They become a little bit too big and they can't fit through the capillaries. So you get anemia symptoms. So you get the tiredness, fatigue, paleness in the skin, breathing really deep and really shortness of breath, and you'll also get that really bounding pulse, like a boom, boom. The pulse goes really high and you might get some chest pains. So the classic signs of anemia. So that's the B12 deficiency. That usually comes from either chronic alcohol use or chronic non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. So any sort of NSAIDs, over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. If you take those for too long, they can disrupt the thing in your stomach called intrinsic factor, which is what your stomach uses to stop itself digesting itself. But it also allows, intrinsic factor also coats B12 when it gets into the stomach, so it allows it to get through and into the small intestine, where it will then be absorbed and used as maturation factor to allow all your cells, not just your red blood cells, but allows all your cells to mature properly. And if that doesn't get through, if the intrinsic factor is diminished because you've been taking too many non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, you may end up with a B12 anemia, which will be this macrocytic normochromic red blood cells. The second one is a normocytic, so normal size, hypochromic, so low in color. So when you look at this person's blood, it's going to be low. It's not going to be as red as we would like it to be. So this is your classic iron deficiency. So iron in your body is used to make heme, and hemoglobin is what you use to carry oxygen around your body. So if you don't have enough heme, you won't be able to, or you don't have enough iron, you won't have enough heme to go into those red blood cells. So the carrying capacity of the red blood cells to transport oxygen through the body is lowered. So that's just a classic case of somebody just needs to get some iron into them. They may have some sort of condition where they can't metabolize iron properly, or the iron they're taking in is not suitable. They could be taking some weird iron supplements, and they just can't get it into their body, and therefore can end up with an iron deficiency. There are some certain diets as well that can lead to that. If somebody's on some sort of a strict diet which isn't catering for the fact that they need iron, they can end up with a normocytic hypochromic anemia. And then the third type of anemia is a normocytic normochromic, so normal size, normal color. And this person is going to be losing blood each week, or losing blood on a chronic basis. So over time, just losing too much blood. So this could happen to a girl who's getting irregular or heavy menstrual cycle. Anybody who has got some sort of Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, they might be losing blood because they're getting the bleeding in their colon or their small intestine. Anybody who's got any sort of neoplasm, so a cancer growing through your body. So really the first thing, if somebody shows signs of anemia, and I discovered this in the hospital, I knew this, but it was kind of hammered home to me at the weekend when I was in hospital, when somebody presents with a really acute signs of anemia, the first thing that they will do is they'll assume that you have a neoplasm somewhere, so they'll want to check everything. So I was grilled. They asked me 100 times all these questions, and I knew they were looking for whether I had any sort of cancers growing in my body. So they also did scope just to rule out that stuff as well, and to find out what was going on. So yeah, so that's the normocytic normochromic. That's the chronic blood loss. And what happens there is the person, all it takes is 1 teaspoon of blood a day. That's the amount it takes. If you lose that 1 teaspoon of blood a day, you will become anemic pretty quickly. Because one, you won't have the B12 for the maturation factor, you won't have the iron to keep producing that heme to make the more red blood cells, and then your body also can't keep up with the amount of red blood cells it's losing. So you're losing blood all the time, and you just can't keep up. So the volume of blood goes down, and you'll get the classic symptoms again that I mentioned earlier. So there are the 3 main types. Mine was of the latter type. It was the normocytic normochromic. I was just losing too much red blood, I was just losing too much blood due to that bleed in my stomach, and therefore, as I was making blood, wasn't able to replenish it as quick as it was. So my hemoglobin was really low, because obviously I couldn't get that amount of iron needed in a week. I'll know more in 3 weeks' time to get tested again. If my levels are low, it means that I'm taking iron in and everything is fine and I never had a problem. And then I'll just continue life as normal. If the red bloods, if I still have low hemoglobin in 3 weeks' time after getting the iron infusion in hospital yesterday, then that will show up that I have some sort of inability of my body to digest or take in iron, or something to do with my diet. So we'll have to look at that then and see how it comes up. But for the moment, I'm kind of in limbo, with fingers crossed that this was just an acute thing that got out of control from that gastric bug I had. So I hope this helps anybody who's got anemia. Anybody who knows anybody who has anemia, please send this on. Any questions about this, just leave it below. This is a subject that I'm quite interested in. I've done a little bit of lecturing this stuff before. So yeah, if you have any questions about it, just pop them below and I'll get back to them as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, guys, and I shall see you all shortly.